for the rest of my life.
Say yes.
'Cause I need to know. You say I'll never get your blessing till the day I die. Tough luck, my friend. No still means no.
Why you gotta be so rude? Don't you know I'm human too? Why you gotta be so rude?
I'm gonna marry her anyway.
Marry this girl.
Oh, that girl. Marry her anyway.
Come on and marry this girl.
Marry that girl. No matter what you say.
Why you gotta be so rude? Why you gotta be so rude? Why you gotta be so rude?
I'm gonna marry her anyway. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord, I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord, can you feel it coming in the air tonight? Oh Lord, oh Lord. Well, if you told me we will try it, I would know, lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am. Well, I wasn't there and I saw what you did. I saw it with my own two eyes. So you can ride off the green. I know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord, I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord, can you feel it coming in the air tonight? Oh Lord, oh Lord. Well, I remember, don't worry. How could I ever forget? It's the first time and the last time we ever met. But I know the reason why you keep your silence up. No, no, you don't fool me. The heart doesn't show, but it'll pay as you grow. It's no stranger to you or me.
It's a thief in the night to come and grab you. You can creep up inside you and consume you. A disease of mind, you can control you. It's too close for comfort. We're on your green lights. We're in the city of one. They're gonna play nice. Watch out, your mind just go under where I think twice. Your train of thought will be altered. So if you must falter, we rise. Your mind isn't disturbia. It's like the darkness is the light. Disturbia. I'm scaring you tonight. Disturbia. Getting used to what to like. Disturbia. Faded pictures on the wall. It's like they talk to me. Disconnect to no one call. I gotta get out or figure the shit out. It's too close for comfort. It's a thief in the night to come and grab you. You can creep up inside you and consume you. A disease of mind, you can control you. I feel like a monster. We're on your green lights. We're in the city of one. They're gonna play nice. Watch out, your mind just go under. Better think twice. Your train of thought will be altered. So if you must falter, we rise. Your mind isn't disturbia. It's like the darkness is the light. Disturbia. I'm scaring you tonight. Disturbia. Getting used to what to like. Disturbia. Release me from this curse. I am trying to remain tame, but I'm struggling. You can go. I think I'm gonna.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Global Meetings Industry Day. My name is Spencer Beasy. I'm the chapter president of MPI San Diego. I'm joined today by the president of Site SoCal, Evan Chrisman, and the CEO of San Diego Tourism, Julie Coker. So we're very excited to have you all here today. We've got a big audience, and today's Global Meetings Industry Day is really about industry advocacy. And really, we just want to advocate all different parts of the industry and what the meetings and events industry means to our local, state, and global economy. It means so much, and we can't wait. This year's theme is Meet Safe, and we just can't wait to get back to meeting safe with all of you. We're very, very excited about partnering with San Diego Tourism Authority and Site SoCal. Past years, our Global Meetings Industry Day events have looked fantastic. We've had then Mayor Kevin Faulkner join us and speak at the San Diego Air and Space Museum. And just such a great event the last time we were all in person, and we had to skip last year, obviously. And we're very, very hopeful that we can get back together this time next year, and we can all do this face to face and really celebrate our industry. Evan?
Good afternoon, industry friends and family. First, I want to thank both MPISD and SDTA for asking Site SoCal to be a part of this awesome Power Hour to celebrate GMID 2021. GMID is always one of my favorite times of year. There's nothing better than coming together to celebrate our great industry. The incentive travel business has been absolutely decimated in the wake of COVID-19, with layoffs, furloughs, and even lifelong incentive specialists who have had to leave our great industry. With that being said, Site SoCal, along with these other great associations, are committed to bringing back events safely and in person. We are even hosting a golf tournament next week on Thursday at the Omni La Costa Resort just up the freeway. It feels like it's time, and things seem to be moving in a much more positive direction lately. So we stay committed to our mission and hope to see the entire events industry bounce back even better than before. At our March educational event, we focused on on-site testing, new safety protocols, and learning a ton of information about the current vaccines from Dr. Chris Min, who is a research scientist doctor. For updated information about bringing back live events or to see some of our past educational events, please visit sitesocal.com. Julie?
Great. Thanks, Evan. And I'm glad I've taken some golf lessons, so I'm ready for the tournament next week. So we're really excited to be here, and we're certainly very excited to be partnering with MPI San Diego chapter, and of course, Site SoCal chapter. In San Diego, meetings and conventions and trade shows are extremely important to us. Pre-COVID, they generated 2.8 million attendees a year, who left about $4 billion in visitor spend in our economy, and they generated 6.6 billion in economic impact. So needless to say, we are missing this part of our sector of our economy, and we can't wait to have it back. As we all know, we had some fantastic news on just Tuesday in regards to the return of face-to-face meetings as of June 15th. The guidelines are under 5,000 are able to take place. If you are more than 5,000, then it would need to be either vaccination records or testing. And then that will be through October 1st. And then October 1st, there will not be restrictions for capacity. We are waiting for further clarification on some of the questions that I know many of you have, and trust and believe we will get that into your hands as quickly as we can. But certainly not just here in San Diego in terms of our chapter, but really across the United States, we can't wait to get back to meeting face to face. So let's enjoy the day and let's go ahead and get started. And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing the 37th Mayor of San Diego, Mayor Todd Gloria. Here's a message from him. Take a listen.
Hello, I'm Todd Gloria, Mayor of the City of San Diego. Thank you for inviting me to participate in Global Meetings Industry Day. I want to thank the San Diego Tourism Authority, the San Diego chapter of Meeting Professionals International, and Site SoCal for putting this event together. I'm continually amazed by the innovation and adaptability of this industry, especially considering the challenges faced during the past year. The meeting industry is an integral part of San Diego. And as we work towards safely reopening our city, I recognize the importance of our hospitality and tourism businesses. It's your work and this industry that brings people from all over the world into our hotels and restaurants. And your leadership and collaboration are vital to our city's success as we get back to work. Count on me to provide continued support for the good work that you do. I'm looking forward to the bright future that we will create together. Thank you and take care.
As you can see, we are very fortunate to have a mayor who is an advocate for our industry and certainly a great supporter. I also want to introduce another advocate for our industry, and that is Supervisor Nora Vargas. She was elected to the San Diego County Board of Supervisors representing the 1st District this past January, and she serves as Vice Chairwoman of the board. Prior to being elected to the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Vargas was elected a member and president of Southwestern College Governing Board, the only public institution of higher education within San Diego County. She also served as the Vice President of Community and Government Relations at Planned Parenthood. And in 2015, Governor Jerry Brown appointed her to serve on the 12-member California State Teachers Retirement System. Let's say that fast. Making her the first Latina to be appointed in the Board of Directors history. More importantly, though, for the past 25 years, Supervisor Vargas has worked to drive positive change and serve her community through public service. She remains focused on mitigating the impacts of the pandemic and focusing on economic recovery, while all the while ensuring equity and inclusion. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Vargas, and she's going to let you know all of the great work that's being done in San Diego County in regards to COVID-19. Supervisor Vargas, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for inviting me to speak today. I would have loved to be in person like all of you have said today. And I know, that COVID-19 has really changed the way we can communicate and meet. But thankfully, I'm here today with all of you virtually. And I do hope to say that we're going to get things back into normal, and we're going to be doing all the things that we love. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to all of you for everything that you do. I do understand how hard this pandemic has been, not only on our region, but I know, particularly to the tourism and meeting industry, all of you have been hit very hard. Know that our county is continuing to work with all of you to be your partners, and we're doing everything possible so that we can reopen safely, and that once again, we are going to be open and be a safe and welcome destination, which is our particular, what's what we want to make sure we all do together. Just this week, I think, everybody knows that the event restrictions have been reduced. I'm really proud that I was able to join my colleagues on the board to approve the fee waivers for the event industry. That means that planners, venues, and vendors will have the permit fees waived for 2021-2022 fiscal year from the Department of Environmental Health and Quality and the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. And so this is really good for the industry. We know that the incredible burden many of the industry has faced. And so we're going to continue to create opportunities so that we create actions that are going to help members of the industry. Particularly, I think that what's important to know is that I'm really, as co-chair of the COVID subcommittee, I'm very proud to share with all of you that we have made massive progress in the past months to increase vaccination efforts. One of the vaccinations became, once vaccinations become available, we focus on making sure that they're getting shots, in every one of our community members, arms people who wants to get their shots will get them. I think some of you have known or may have known now that in the South region, 99% of individuals who are 65 and older have been vaccinated with at least one vaccine. And the only way we got there is because we had to work together, especially in communities in South County. And so where we know that we faced a lot of disparities, we've worked together to make sure that we have piloted intervention programs that worked in South County and now are going to be across the county as a whole. What we've done as a county, along with Chair Fletcher, and is to really focus on building out an infrastructure that had never existed before to handle some of the concerted efforts through vaccination and COVID testing as well. That infrastructure has helped us and allow us to administer 1.9 billion vaccine doses in the county. And as a result, more people are getting vaccinated and less hospitalizations are happening. So we're now seeing the easing of restrictions and safe reopening of the industries that drive our local economy. I'm really proud to support the safe return of meetings and conventions to San Diego County. I think now that we, we continue as we now are in the orange tier, right? Given the trajectory that we've been on. But really, this is the result of our county case rate falling under 5.9 per 100,000 people, 4 million vaccines administered. And what's important about this is that the restaurants, right? If you think about what does the orange tier mean for us right now, 50% indoor capacity for restaurants, for movie theaters, places of worship, museums, breweries and wineries, right? We lifted that ban as well on breweries so that they are able to not have food while they're providing entertainment for our communities and for the patrons, family entertainment centers as well. So I think the other one that's important is the gatherings. A lot of social and informal, no guest list, no testing, vaccine required. Outdoor, anyone that's 50, max 50 people or more. Indoor allowed with modifications. And so we have a lot of changes coming with private events, indoor seating, venues now up to 1,500, 15% or 200 people max. And so I think what's really critical here is that we want to make sure that we continue to ensure that folks wear their masks, that we continue to be as cautious as possible so that we can continue on this path. We have heard now from the governor, right, that the state is really fully to reopen the economy on June 15. And that is all contingent about vaccines and hospitalization numbers remaining stable. So we want to make sure that we encourage everyone so we can continue in these numbers so we can reopen our economy at the level that we were at before and better. So California is set to surpass more than 20 million vaccine doses administered, including 4 million in the state's hardest hit communities. And this is going to be important because we're going to make sure that we have enough vaccines in our communities when we fully reopen the economy. The blueprint for a safer economy will end. and we're going to be able to really get back to where we needed to be. So I'm really proud of the progress that we've made so far. We'd have never been able to do this if we'd been together. I know how hard it's been, particularly for our communities. And I want to thank the San Diego Tourism Authority, the San Diego chapter of Meeting Professionals International, and the Society of Incentive Executives, Greater Southern California chapter, for hosting this event. I really do think that the only way we're going to go through this is doing it together. And my goal and my hope is to, as the vice chair of the board, is to continue to advocate and support all of you in any way I can, so that we can continue to ensure that San Diego is a welcoming city for all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor Vargas. We so appreciate all the work that you have done to make sure that San Diegans and the county has been safe. And we know that we'll continue to move in a positive direction. So thank you for all of your work, and spending time with us today is really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I am going to turn it over to Evan, who is going to introduce our speaker for the hour. Evan, take it away.
Thanks, Julie. Next up, we have Tim Woodring. He holds an MFA in design thinking, design thinking from the University of North Texas, and is a doctoral student in the organizational change at Colorado State University. He's the Chief Solutions Officer at Unbridled and speaks regularly on topics related to events and human connection. Tim's also a chronic hobbyist and a Bush League futurist. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, thank you. Can you guys hear me all right? Awesome, thumbs up, I'm getting over there. So I'm gonna share my screen for today's presentation real quick. Very good. And you guys can see that as well, I'm guessing. Thumbs up. Awesome. Well, I am so glad to be with you guys today. And I am loving what we're hearing with events, and today's event and just the momentum and energy that's going into events is really positive. And I love talking about this topic. And I'm hopeful that today's conversation gives you some practical ways to think about event planning and the future of events from a different angle that you may not be used to thinking of. And, you know, when we think about today, oh, and I also just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to today. And thank you, Julie and Evan and Spencer, for having me, and the entirety of this chapter. We, Unbridled, we love San Diego. We have an office in San Diego, and I used to be there basically every month and almost got an apartment there. I was there so often. And so I love San Diego. I'm coming to you live from Denver and thrilled to be with you today. So thank you guys. So I want to talk a little bit about the future and what it's going to look like. And, you know, when we think about the future, everyone wants a crystal ball. They want to know, you know, what it looks like. And there's lots of conjecture out there about what the events look like. And, you know, I think that some of that energy is just, it's channeled from us so wanting to get back together. And so, you know, with this crystal ball, if we had one, we would have done things a lot differently all around. You know, I saw this great meme the other day. It said, for the first time ever, hindsight truly is 2020. And that's the year. And I thought that that was great because it is, you know, if we had had the hindsight and the crystal ball, we would have shut down Wuhan, or we would have bought Bitcoin, or we would have bought Tesla stock. There's a number of things that we would have done if we knew the future, but we don't know the future. And oftentimes we fail at predicting what it's going to look like. And so when we envision tomorrow, we most often project uncertainty and calamity even. But when we forecast in business, we often project certain variability. So what does that mean? Well, I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So when we think about thinking into the future, oftentimes we think about things like sci-fi, take for an example. And in sci-fi, there's this mysterious case of the missing utopian novels. This is a great article by Time magazine in which they started to look at all the popular science fiction novels, and they realized that there was a big missing category of utopian novels. Because when we started to envision what the future would look like, we started to think about a lot of the negative potential, and it's kind of human nature to do that. So we think about things like this. This is a billboard that I used to pass by every day on my way into the office on Interstate 25, and it says, robots can't take your job if you're already retired. So it's playing into fear of the future, that somehow things are going to change and robots are going to take everybody's job. And so they're playing into that, and that happens. When we think about the future, sometimes we envision things like this. You know, somehow humanity is going to overconsume resources, or we're going to create something and it's going to create this, you know, terrible outcome and reality. And so science fiction often does that. And for many of you, you're probably thinking, you know, where is my hoverboard that I thought and knew would come from Back to the Future when we thought about what the future was going to look like, and we still don't have it, you know? But that's kind of when we use our imagination, sometimes we think about the world in terms of fears. And so today we're going to do some exercises in which we do some of that. We think about the future with some of the fears and concerns that are out there, but we're also going to take an optimistic lens and think about some potentials that could be really amazing and actually propel events in a sense. But when we think about business, oftentimes what we project is variable certainty. And so many of you have seen graphs like this. You'll say, hey, we're going to think about the future and we're going to create a forecast. And with the forecast, we're going to create 3 different options in the forecast. There's going to be the best case scenario. There's going to be status quo. Things are going to be about the same, growth at the same. And then, you know, we're going to also think about, well, maybe there's a worst case scenario in which things decrease slightly. And so that's normally when we think about business, that's the future that we forecast. The only problem with that is that the future doesn't necessarily work that way. And this practice of what we're going to go through today, called scenario planning, really starts with that assumption that there's a large amount of uncertainty that goes into thinking about the future. And it came out of actually planning in the oil industry. And so you can see here, this was a projection or forecast from Shell, in which they were saying, you know what, we think there's going to be a moderate amount of variability in the future. And so we're going to kind of project this range of how many, you know, million barrels of oil we're going to see per day. Well, the only problem is that it didn't necessarily pan out that way. So in 1973, OPEC started an embargo based on a war that was happening at that time. And you can see that the reality wasn't even in the range of what they had forecasted. And the surprising thing is that when you actually look back just on this chart, you can see that there was already a high amount of variability that went into their past. So in 1973, you saw that this embargo act happened, and that, you know, the variability started in that sense. So even when Shell had a history that said, well, things don't always work out in a really clean forecast, they didn't necessarily take that into account until the second time that the variability hit, and they started to use scenario planning as a way to think about the future in terms of what uncertainty is out there, what could happen, rather than just simply saying, hey, we're going to take the future and say that there's going to be a best case scenario, a middle case scenario, and a worst case scenario. And so that's really where scenario planning comes in. And this happens not just in financial forecasting, but I want you guys to take a look at this map. And in the chat, I want to see if you can tell me what is wrong with this map. Can you point it out? Let's see if I can see. Does anyone see what is wrong with this map?
Tim, we're not seeing the map on our end yet. Can you adjust the slide at all?
Do you see the map now?
No, not yet.
Do you see the map now?
No, still the graph.
There should be a map of the US up right now. There's not? Let me reshare my screen and see if that helps. How about now?
Still nothing.
Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. How about now? Do you see a map?
No. We see your
Okay.
screen share, but we don't have the map image. I'm familiar with the image that you're talking about. I saw your deck already,
Okay.
but
All right, let me try it a different way. Anything now? Nothing still?
there we are, Tim.
Let me try.
Tim, we're good.
You do see the map now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, but now that you guys can see this, I'm interested in the chat, if you can, tell me if anyone sees what is wrong with this map. The map was late to the party. That's very right. I chose this map especially for you guys. The island of California, so it's in there. So you may, this was a case of bad forecasting. So this is a real map that was created in 1611, and it was of early North America. And what had happened was some explorers had gotten in, and they were in the Baja Peninsula of California, and they got to a peninsula and they went up enough to say, do you know what, we're going to forecast what we think the rest of this land looks like. And so they built out what they believed was the island of California. And the only problem with this is that later down the road, as early settlers came in, they went to California using this map and expected to have to disassemble their boats and carry them over land and then bring them to the Gulf of California. The only problem with that is that we found lots of donkeys and disassembled boats somewhere in the middle of Utah and Nevada, and it never actually happened because they used forecasting to say, hey, we're going to assume that this is going to project into the future, and it didn't necessarily work that way. So with scenario planning, what we do is we say, there's a lot that we don't know. In fact, there's more that we don't know than we do know. And what we actually know is very little. And our ability to predict the future is not perfect. And so instead it says, you know what, there's actually a range of plausible futures for what the event, what the future could potentially look like. And we're going to take things to inform these plausible versions of the future. So today's adventure is that we're going to use our imagination to envision what these different worlds of events could look like. And these are futures that are informed by, what information is out there. We'll talk about some ways so you can build your own futures. But it's essentially created through looking around at the world today and imagining and trying to say, do you know what, if this played out in this way, it would create this type of future. Or if this played out in this way, it would create a different type of future that looks very different than that prior one, rather than trying to create an incremental certain variability in what the future becomes and looks like. And we do that through looking at outside forces that are exerting force on the events industry and how those could potentially shape these worlds. So we're going to go through 5 different scenarios of what these future worlds could look like. And I want you to pay special attention, because at the end of this, we're going to do a poll, and I'm going to ask you guys to determine which of these futures you think is the most likely. And so we're going to do that at the end. So pay attention and try and keep them in your mind as we go. And hopefully these prove to be helpful devices for you to say, hey, it could shape it in this way, or this is a potential thing to plan about. And we'll talk about why that's important. So the first potential future is that we have a world in which vaccines are rolled out, but somehow demand has rolled back. So why could that be? Well, vaccine has rolled out, and it's been pretty successful across the world, apart from some developing nations, which are tracking behind a little bit. And if you look at the data, that's true. But with it, change takes time, slowed by vocal employee activists, bureaucratic change to local, state, and federal regulations, who are slowly rolling back restrictions. These ongoing restrictions and waning concerns regarding large gatherings creates reluctancy with organizations to hold in-person events. Organizations wonder if they need the same events or if they can make it work with fewer in-person events and more virtual events. Three forces reduce the demand: organizational cutting costs, organizational policy and culture that's changed to more from a work from home orientation, demanding less travel, and that when given an option, employees often opt for remote attendance, increasing the demand or necessity for hybrid events or virtual events as a mainstay. So what are the implications? We'll go through what the world looks like and what are the implications for each one. Well, with this one, we're going to learn more about what the audience is interested in. We need to know if this is the case. Let's talk with their audience and see what they actually think. What do they want? And we don't necessarily want to try and force the future. We want to be flexible and open-minded, which means that we can't necessarily force people to attend, and we don't necessarily have great visibility into numbers. I think in this one, the implication also is to rethink your events playbook. Look at redesigning the pattern of your events in a way that embraces the changing preferences and demand from your audiences. The next scenario is called medicine, the elixir of modern life. And in this scenario, vaccine rollouts are highly effective, and it exponentially accelerates as fewer people get sick and transmission moves down rapidly. So news hits that the new variants are still controlled by the vaccines, and confidence begins to grow. And with it, the world has a pent-up demand to travel and for growth, with only a minority suffering from this mass sense of agoraphobia. This minority is accommodated through the requisite virtual attendance option, but that turns into being more about access than developing really robust virtual events. And the challenge in this world is inventory, because organizations really realize that demand is driving prices and options are going very quickly. So in this world, the implications are that you need to be decisive and think about quick sourcing and making decisions, and lead with optional attendance, but really prepare for less virtual demand. You got to double down on in-person gathering and considering adding events for people to get together and reconnect. Because if there's this pent-up demand, people are going to really want to connect. It may make connection a bigger part of what events are. And then networking and connection, that would change the demand, and it may reassemble what events look like. The third scenario is demand dysrhythmia. So in this scenario, vaccines are largely rolled out across the world, but the world is still rife with dysrhythmia and ongoing attempts to stabilize. Demand is similarly confused as organizations are trepidatious of in-person events, waiting for the world to forget and for the noise to stop. It's a world that's defined by trying to make sense of things. Realities and demand are difficult to determine, and some organizations return to normal, especially small or private companies. Pharma tries to decide if they need the same type of sales force and meetings. This reassessment of event patterns takes time to reestablish organizational needs for events. Some organizations go through cost cutting, others like tech are thriving, and employees are mostly for traveling, but the dysrhythmia has also reduced many traditional business trips, with organizations carrying over to video conferencing platforms and capabilities from the pandemic. The implications in this world is that companies will look for guidance as they navigate disruption, and many seek providers to help them navigate that change. Hotels and venues find cautious buyers asking for more flexibility because we don't necessarily know there's this dysrhythmia. And buyers have less insight into hotel room demand, creating less certainty in planning. And companies are managing their workforce in a new way. And events begin to blur internal communication, learning and development, virtual events, and in-person events. The best practices are developed along the way. And I think that's something we're seeing. When you think about best practices, it takes time to figure out what those look like. And so we don't necessarily know just yet. And in this world, there's a spectrum of events that becomes critical for each client who has a different stack of events, like small in-person events that focus more on a virtual audience, demanding tech-equipped spaces. We could see a lot of that in this world. Here's scenario 4, the great reaction. So in this world, attention shifts from the virus to the economy as inflation and lack of return of hospitality and other blue collar work slowly erodes the American economy. As this ripples through the US, many businesses are forced to take early drastic cost-cutting measures, travel and entertainment and events as they seek to recover their business. The US government has run out of room to print money as inflation and debt start to adversely affect the strength of the US dollar, moving the focus more to China's new digital currency. As these ramifications compound, the US enters the Great Reaction, an economic depression caused by the reactions to COVID-19. The Great Reaction doesn't happen instantly and doesn't affect all businesses equally, but tech seems to continue to grow and there's less demand for in-person events. Pharma and biotech events continue, but companies like retail are challenged. In this world, some businesses attempt to stay solvent and cancellations and contracts are heavy with attrition, but other events are thriving and the in-person experience differentiates the haves from the have-nots. So that's where there's a premium on being in person. Less fortunate companies still look for ways to communicate with their people, but no clear path develops for this. So it becomes virtual events, internal communication, other types of events, and hotels and venues seek to recover losses in a variety of ways. Maybe there's pressure on margin, budgets, contract duration, or the value is paramount as people are asking to do more with less. Next up and lastly, the ubiquitous new normal. So in this world, the phrase the new normal defines many industries and ways of working. The world has changed and virtual events are better. More employees are working from home and generally things are in flux, but it's an optimistic flux with a high percentage of GDP growth ahead and the economy is on the up and up. How does this new normal affect events? Well, hybrid events are the new standard and employees begin opting more and more for in-person events over time, but at first it's split. Events begin to blur the lines between the physical and the digital, which is a trend that continues all the way into VR events that truly blend this reality. In this world, virtual events maintain an ongoing position in the corporate event stack and budgets increase to accommodate both attendee types. In the new normal, people are hungry for connection and transformative experiences. Mental health, loneliness, collective trauma, they all come to the forefront, creating more appetites for events to meet a primary need of human connection. The implications here, event owners want a new normal, whether that's the hotel, the provider, the DMC, or whoever understands what this new climate is, and new language begins to pop up that signifies this new normal. It's kind of like a way of saying, hey, we know this new normal. The terminology differentiates these players who understand the space. Hybrid, fluidity, strategy, design thinking all become a part of the new events conversation, as the idea of event planning is associated with an old way of doing things. New event types emerge and patterns, for instance, distributed events, where attendees come together for the same event, but in different cities, or hotel venues that rethink contracting. Maybe there's events that have no general session in the ballroom and people watch general sessions from the hotel room, but it's more about networking and connection. So next up, we're gonna do a poll and we're gonna let you tell us what you think about which one of these scenarios is the most likely. You can see the numbers coming in. We've got about a quarter of them. And even now we can see that there's a mix between these potential future worlds. We're about halfway there. I'm going to give it just another beat for people to respond. I appreciate that people are being thoughtful about this and participating in this. And yeah, as we can see, you know, as the results come in, it seems like the first 4 scenarios have somewhat of an even split, somewhere around 15% of what this could be. I agree, Megan, power is out there. Putting time in seems important. Michael McGuire saying, I'll take 5 for 200. Yeah, I think 5 is definitely the scenario in which it's probably the most optimistic in a sense, but it's also informed by some of what we're seeing. Okay, well, it seems like there is a pretty fair mix between the scenarios. In other words, we can imagine a world in which these things are somewhat comparable, or there's each one of them is there's some world, and it's plausible to say that this could happen. It's plausible to say that vaccines are rolled out but demand is back. It's plausible to say that that vaccines could change modern life and we just go back to the way things were before, or that things are still in this dysrhythmia and maybe there's a great reaction that we don't necessarily know, but it happens, and we can't float the economy for too long. And then hopefully, as many of you said, we go with this fifth scenario of the ubiquitous new normal. Okay, so we've talked about scenario planning, and you guys have had a taste of what that could look like. You've seen that, you know, we can imagine worlds in which they're very different and that they're all plausible. You guys voted between 15% on many of them up to 30. So now what? Well, in scenario planning, what you do is it's called starting to look for signals. And when you think about signals, you can think about signals kind of like headlines. And so I just pulled a couple headlines from LinkedIn and a news source, and these are what they look like. So if you begin to look at them, you can see that we've got a few things that are informing even these scenarios we looked at, like jobless claims are ticking up. Well, that would say, hey, maybe there's something to the Great Reaction. We see other things like California to set a date to reopen the economy. That would say, hey, we're moving into some growth. That's optimistic. There's other things happening, like things in Florida with the government and cruise shutdown. And so that could say, hey, maybe there's some dysrhythmia out there. And then, as you can see, media does a great job of continuing to play on people's fear. With the laid off pandemic, some workers find robots have taken their job. And so who knows, maybe we're heading into Terminator, but that's not what I believe. And so what's the point of all of this? And this is kind of the closing here, is that, you know, confidence doesn't come from knowing what will happen, because we can't know what will happen. And we can't necessarily just say it's going to have a controllable amount of variability. Instead, confidence comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you can adapt. Learn to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and confidently deliver even when you're not fully prepared. And what does that look like? Well, I believe that the future belongs to those who believe in the power of their dreams. It's a great quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. And I believe that to be true. And I believe that associations like this and meeting professionals, that we have some power to shape what this looks like. And so let's look at the signals. Let's stay informed on the news, read the headlines. And as you're planning your events, don't necessarily say, hey, we think it's going to be somewhere between 800 to 1,200 attendees, and think in terms of variability. Instead, let's ask good questions. Let's read headlines to see which of these futures do we think we're moving into. If we start to see more news on the economy, and let's say that it's, you know, looking bad, well, then we might be moving into this great reaction. And there's ways that you can move into that confidently. If we're seeing these new terminologies come up as the new normal, and the new normal this, and the new normal this, and ballrooms are the new normal in this way, and meeting functions are the new normal, then start to adopt that vernacular, put it into your marketing materials, talk with people about being a new normal provider. So you can see how these future worlds can give you a different way than just saying, you know, let's hope for the best, let's stick our head in the sand, or we can control the outcomes. Instead, let's use our imagination to envision what it could look like. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much. That was absolutely inspirational, and thank you for the positive message. And we are all going to be looking towards the brighter future that we know will come, and thank you for that. We do appreciate
Agreed.
your time and being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
So hopefully you can hear that big round of applause that we can't really do in this virtual space. But anyway, hopefully you've got the big hug and thank you from all of us. I did just want to pop on because there was a question in regards to guidelines in California. And so the question reads, with the guidelines for meetings requiring proof of negative test or vaccine proof, how is everyone looking to handle this? Will the planner/company required to get this from the attendee or the venue? So that question is across all of California. As you know, the guidelines came out literally just Tuesday. And so all of us are working with our individual cities and counties across California to clarify and to get a little bit more direction in regards to that. We do believe that it's going to be on the responsible of the meeting planner. However, as we have always done in destinations, not just here in San Diego, but across California, we are going to partner with meeting planners to come up with solutions. So give us at least until the 15th, till the middle of the month, to just try and understand what that recording of that vaccination looks like, and how we need to keep that, and where that needs to be kept and held and all that kind of good stuff. And then also to know that all of the destinations across California are working on a public-private solution in regards to testing. So we definitely have some things to work out, and we will certainly make sure that we get that to you. But I can tell you that that is a welcome problem to have. So the good news is that we're heading in the right direction. So I am going to turn it over to our fearless leader, Spencer, who is going to close us out and thank everyone.
Thank you very much, Julie. Well, thank you all for being here. I want to say a big thank you. Oh, I think we have one more question, maybe. Do we have one more? Is that what it is? Yeah. Hey, we'll take another question. Get that on our teleprompter here. Regarding in-person events, what are we finding the liability is on the corporate company planning the event, or the convention, or the in-person? I'm not sure I understand the way that's worded.
Yeah. What are funding the liability?
So it might have been an autocorrect situation. So it looks like it might be asking where the liability falls, which looks like it sort of matches up with the question we just went through, Julie, maybe.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe we just give them some more time to continue working on that. Solutions will be forthcoming. It sounds like there's going to be partnerships, on the state and local levels to try to reach an agreement and a process that will come together and make sense for everybody. So hopefully that answers that question. Sorry if we didn't get that right for you. So again, thank you all for attending. We had about 150 people on at one point, so we're very happy with that. I want to thank especially our partners here, Site SoCal, Evan Crispin, and San Diego Tourism Authority, Julie Coker. Thank you very much for both being here. It was really a thrill. I hope we can all do this in person next year, and not just the three of us and our staff here in studio, but I hope we can all get together. I hope all 150 or 200 can get together, and we can have some dinner, have some entertainment, and have some fun. So I want to thank a couple of other people. In particular, my MPI San Diego chair of this event, Peggy Jewell. She's a past president. She's with West End Entertainment. Peggy, thank you very much. Peggy put all of this together. It was her kind of idea to start this, and she worked very, very closely with Margie Sitton at San Diego Tourism Authority. So thank you, Margie, for your input as well. And our big thank you to my friend Toby Russell here at Event-A-Vision. Event-A-Vision is a fantastic audio-visual. They do I feel like you guys do everything under the sun. I've known Toby for years, and he stepped up and didn't miss a beat. And I hope you were as happy with the way things turned out today as I was. Toby's got a great audiovisual company. He serves all over the region, but he's located right here in Bay Park, just off the 5, right by Costco. You know where it's at. So if you don't already have your audiovisual in place for your next event, call Toby. He's a great guy to work with. He'll help you find a solution that makes sense for you and your event. And he's got lots of great virtual options as well as in-person options. So thank you very much for all of you. I also want to thank Pascal Senaju and Aaron Scholes for helping here behind the scenes, and the rest of Toby's staff. So thank you all very much. I think that's it. Are we good?
We're good.
Happy Global Meetings Industry Day, everybody. Thank you very much.
Guys.
We'll see you soon.
Sunshine, she's here. You can take